ether.
Jim's not on there?
No.
All right, I'll call the meeting, whenever.
Yeah, I didn't like the way I was looking
You are
online,
live.
so I thought I'd show up. Couldn't get the right light, and I wasn't into putting makeup on, so.
I think it's better if you have a good-looking woman stand behind you when you're doing
Yep.
it.
Okay, we're calling the meeting to order. Today is June 22nd at 7 p.m., and it's the Board of Finance meeting. The first order of business is members present, which I guess you've already taken, the attendance, okay?
Yep. So I have Kathy Devlin, Michael Parker, Bill Meyer is here virtually, and Bill Salka is here virtually.
Thank you. Third item on the agenda is the Board of Education. There's an update and a discussion.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I hope everyone and their families still remain in good health. First, I want to kind of give you guys an update on the budget coming through the end of the school and fiscal year. Earlier in the year, we reported to both the Board of Education and the Board of Finance that we thought that $250,000 was going to be the landing zone for the amount of funds that we were going to be able to get back. We still remain on target with that $250,000. We still have a little bit more than a week left in the school year, and we are anticipating some more POs coming in. I don't anticipate any huge items that will be coming in, so I do feel confident that we will be able to return approximately $250,000 to the town at the end of the year. This year, there's obviously a number of different savings that are generating this. Specifically, some came from our payroll. We did not have to use a lot of overtime because we weren't in session. Obviously, substitutes for both secretaries, teachers, paras. Obviously, we did not need to do that. And we have a lot of other support staff that we usually utilize, such as tutors, that we did not have to pay salaries for. Another savings that saw brought in a substantial amount was unfortunately our spring sports season. We did not obviously have a sports season, so therefore the stipends that were paid out to the coaches, normally are paid out to the coaches, were not. I think we were very successful in renegotiating bus transportation contract, seeing that there was no services that were being provided for the last 3 months of schools, so we did see substantial savings there. Utilities, we're anticipating seeing some savings there, and we don't know yet until the final bills come in, but obviously electricity and any kind of fuel that we generally use in the buildings would not be in as high demand as they usually were. After-school clubs and advisors to those clubs, again, we did not have to pay the full stipend because most of the clubs were not in session during our distance learning phase. There were some clubs that continued on in a virtual environment, so we are obligated to pay those advisors. There are a number of different supplies that are kind of time sensitive that we didn't have to buy. And being time sensitive, it's like for our food service, our foods program at the high school. Usually those are supplies we buy as we go because we don't want the food to go bad, as opposed to classroom supplies, which we typically buy over the summer for the whole entire year. So we did see some savings in some of those, and then little savings in things like what I call overhead. Postage was reduced, printing, forms, travel, professional development, some consultants that we typically use to support some of our instructional programs we did not have to pay. So those are kind of the big ticket items that are driving that saving. On the other hand, there were some costs that we had to incur because of COVID. The big one being the assumption of the food service program, the Grab and Go program. Our food service program is not something that's incorporated into our budget. It is a self-supporting program that all the salaries and the supplies and everything that goes with us maintenance supplies, sanitizing supplies, PPE supplies that we needed to try to get ahead of. There are additional technology services for subscriptions that we needed to buy or pay for to support our distance learning model. And we did lose some funds in that we do have some revenue generating accounts like student parking. Obviously, we had to return some of the student parking money because they pay in full for the entire year, so we need to refund that. We also, in our pre-K program, we have, that is another predominantly self-supporting system for the staffing and the supplies through tuition. That's parents pay to participate in the pre-K program. And obviously, we weren't able to acquire the last 3 months of tuition payments from parents because we did suspend our pre-K program. So that's, those are the big ticket items for both savings and cost. And then when we added everything up and subtracted everything out, it comes to about a savings, overall savings of the budget of about $250,000.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. The second item that I'm bringing to the Board of Finance for consideration and the beginning of a discussion is that the Board of Education at their last meeting on June 8th unanimously passed a motion directing me to talk or request from the board the setting up of an unexpected educational funds account for Connecticut State General Statutes. I think that Mike Marinaccio forwarded on the official request that I made to Jim Persano. I'd like to talk a little bit about that. As I said in the memo or in the request, the Board of Finance has been extremely supportive of the Board of Education and funding us appropriately over the last couple of years, so there really wasn't a need to have this set up. And this year or the next coming year is going to be significantly different because I think everybody, municipalities, boards of education, police departments, fire departments, are going to be going into an extremely volatile year where they can anticipate some costs that were unbudgeted for due to the COVID situation, but more importantly, that we're going to find some unanticipated costs that we haven't even come up with yet. So we feel that the establishment of this fund and funding it with some of the excess or the surplus that we're returning would help us be more responsible in responding to all the safety needs and the logistical needs that are going to come about from operating in a pandemic. And this is a fund that is not uncommon. There are a number of towns, the majority of the superintendents that I communicate with, Ellington, South Windsor, Holland, Glastonbury, Coventry, Simsbury, all have this fund that is used traditionally to support any unanticipated costs. And certainly that's going to be something that, as I mentioned, is going to happen to us. Right now, we're operating kind of in the unknown. We don't know what next year is going to look like. We know that the Commissioner of Education, we're anticipating him coming out with some rules and guidelines on how we will operate next year. That should be coming out before July 1st. I'm hoping that it'll come out this week. And that will kind of help us more pinpoint what some of those expenses are going to be depending upon the model. Right now, there are about 3 different models that we could go back. The first one being, traditional operations, everyone comes back. That one obviously would not have a tremendous amount of extra cost because we'd be operating as normal and we'd budgeted for most of those expenses. The second one would be the opposite end of the spectrum in that we would go full distance learning where nobody would come back and we would just continue with the model that we were operating in for the last 3 months of the year. Again, there would be some additional cost to that, but I don't think it would be anything substantial. The model that we think that we're going to be coming back at is some kind of modified operations where we're going to have to adhere to extreme social distancing, if you will. If we take a look, the only model or the only guidance that we have right now is the rules that have come out for summer school, which are limiting class sizes of 10, and they're, and it's that will be extreme social distancing. Also, the busing, we're going to have to severely reduce the number of people by up to 3/4, so we'll be running capacity on the bus of about 25%. That could have some significant impacts in transportation.
It's about twice as much as on them
It's
now.
hard to really tell you what those expenses are going to be right now, without everyone we talk to is saying that the opening committee is going to be looking at some kind of modified program. What that is, we don't know at this time. Some of the expenses that we were, the leadership team has been working on this really since late March. We got concerned looking at what happens in the future. And some of these are anticipated. Again, nothing is rock solid, but we're anticipating some substantial increases. Special education will have substantial increases no matter which model we go to. We already know
Nice going,
that
Brian.
there's going to be a significant number of increases in
It's hard not to hear moving that too.
testing due to the distance learning for the special needs population. This will require a significant amount of time of our evaluators, and their caseloads are already big from normal testing that occurs within a school year. So we anticipate in order to handle the extra amount, we're going to have to pay for overtime to teachers to conduct this, or to look at bringing in independent evaluators. And one of the problems is that we are under with special education law, we're under strict time frames. So it's not like, okay, we can just push this off until we have some evaluators in-house that have free time. We have to do, we are mandated by law to do and complete and implement the program within 45 days. So you can see, that's a quick process. And there's a lot of intensive testing that has to happen, so we anticipate we're going to need some extra staff or overtime hours. We already know that we have to do makeup evaluations because we were unable to conduct special education testing during the spring for 3 months. That's traditionally when a lot of triennial testing will occur. In order for us to make up this testing, we are implementing a summer testing program. This is an unbudgeted expense. We know that that's going to probably cost us in salaries approximately $25,000. Again, that was unbudgeted. There's going to be an increase in time with students as far as instructional time to make up for some of the lost skills. And especially in some of this social and emotional levels, we're seeing significant increases from students who are suffering from some emotional distress, being isolated and not being able to socialize. So a lot of these kids, we're going to have to deal with their emotional issues, and we're going to have to, in some cases, go back and teach these kids how to socialize again. And we anticipate that there will be some cost of that. With special education, there's always legal costs, and we anticipate with the increases in referrals and skill sets lost that the lawyers will unfortunately have to become a lot more involved in our PPP process. I've already talked to our director of special ed, Denise Messina, has already given me a heads up that in end of the year PPTs, there's already a significant request for increased out-of-district placements. Out-of-district placements can be extremely costly, up to the tune of about $140,000 per child each year. We've maintained a very good program. We've maintained out-of-district placements in the last couple of years of around 12 to 13 kids. We anticipate that this could go up as many to 20 to 25 total. So if that is the case, that would be the doubling potentially of that out-of-placement budget, which again, we have not budgeted for. We anticipate tuition increases from these out-of-school facilities. You probably have heard in the news that a lot of the restaurants are, to make up money, I guess, are doing a COVID surcharge, perhaps to make up the lost revenue. We anticipate that some of the schools that we have contracts will also do some kind of increase above what they normally do in order for them to make up for any lost revenue. In again, we don't have much flexibility because these are mandated by federal law. If this is in a child's IEP, that they go to that institution and are obligated to pay whatever that institution's rates are. And with all of this special education and increases in services and times, we are going to need to have an additional education staff, specifically a coordinator to help provide additional support and management. We have one director for the entire district. This has been a budget request that has been unfilled, and actually I've not included in my budget, although it has been requested by the administrators for the past couple of years, just in anticipation of the increased workload they were experiencing pre-COVID. So now, going into post-COVID or COVID situation, I anticipate that we will need additional staff and to help coordinate all this. As far as other staffing needs from our medical staff, we are going to need to bring on certified nurses assistants so that we can help, they can help provide some relief to our school nurses in case they're called out to deal with some health-related issues. We are going to need to have additional tutors because to support students who are considered high risk from a medical standpoint and cannot come to school, we are still obligated to provide them with some sort of education, and the only way that we would be able to probably do that outside of a distance learning mode would be through tutors that we would send into the houses. We will need to take a look at long-term substitutes for our high-risk staff who have underlying conditions that may prevent them from coming into work. That's going to be quite interesting how that's being handled, and again, there will be high legal costs, I think, associated with that. But basically how that could work, a scenario how that could work, is that a teacher who's a senior teacher, has been in the district for a long time, has accumulated a significant amount of sick time, could be allowed to use that sick time. And if that happens, that means that we have to bring in a long-term sub. Any substitute that works in a position for more than, I think it's 24 consecutive days, automatically gets bumped up to teacher pay. So it's not like we're just going to be paying these teachers the traditional $92 a day. We would be having to pay them the per diem rate, which would be maybe about a $40,000 salary. So that could be a significant cost that we would anticipate. Food services, as I mentioned, is something that we don't budget. I anticipate that at some point in time, we will have to go back to distance learning mode if we listen to all the guidance that's out there. And if that is such, we will then have to continue our grab-and-go program to support meals going home to students. We would have to assume responsibility for all that, and we're seeing that is about a $20,000 per month expense based upon what we saw from the spring. There's a hybrid schedule that's been bouncing around out there, and we don't know if it's going to become reality. And the hybrid model that's been being discussed is that they would be looking to bring all of the elementary school students back in for 4 or 5 days per week. The secondary students, middle school and high school, would be staying out of school for those 4 to 5 weeks through a distance learning mode. Now, if they said that because we'd have empty middle schools and we'd have empty high schools, that we could spread the kids out over multiple buildings. And while that is true, we still need to provide additional staff, because if we're splitting a class in half, well, we have to have 2 teachers. And when we took a look at our enrollment and going by the guidance of the 10 to 1, which I think maybe will be more like 12 to 1, that would require us to bring on an additional 13 teachers, and that would be an annual cost of $910,000. Obviously, I don't think that we would last the entire year in that, but even if it's a half a year, that's almost a $500,000 additional expense that we would have to incorporate. And the final one is that we are providing summer school this year. Traditionally, we have not provided this. We're doing it free of charge for the students so that we can get as many students coming back into the schools to help bring their skill sets up, because we do know that there was significant skill loss over the 3 months, and we want to get them up to Moving on to transportation, I'm very concerned, as I said, about that social distancing on the bus. Bus capacity is at 70. I anticipate possibly that we will get a high number of parents that will bring their students in, and we may not see a lot of students on the bus, so this may play in our favor. But again, we still may need to take a look at bringing on extra buses to support any social distancing guidelines that come down from the state. Bringing on, and that's a bus alone costs roughly, a new bus roughly costs about $80,000 to $90,000, and we would need additional staff to drive those buses. We also, if we have this social distancing on the buses, athletics, we're going to need to bring additional buses in to support transporting our athletes to their away games. Moving on to facilities, obviously one of the big things that's in the news and everyone's trying to secure are all of our sanitizing and PPE supplies. We have made some significant purchases in anticipation of this. I anticipate that we will need to continue to make these purchases on an ongoing basis. For our custodial staff, I anticipate overtime to try and maintain a highly sanitized environment during the day, and then sanitize the entire building overnight. So that will require us to either do significant overtime and or bring on additional custodial staff so that we can maintain sanitized facilities. We're also in the process of switching out touchless our faucets and toilets and doors to make them as touchless as possible so that we can eliminate any kind of contact. HVAC and air filtering, we're going to have to take a look at enhancing our filtering system on the HVAC system, as well as placing air filtering devices into the classrooms in order to try and mitigate any spread of droplets for the virus. And then the final category that we're looking at is programming and operations resources. Last year, or the last couple of months, many of the companies were very generous in offering their services free. We've had great success with a lot of them. I anticipate that the free subscription will end next school year, and we will have to pay full subscription prices for them. We are also going to have to take a look at a student information system and additional licensing. This is what manages all of our kids and our schedules and our grading and our room assignments. And we have one license because typically we operate under one schedule, and it works very well. Next year, I anticipate that we may have to do two schedules. We may start off the school year with one schedule and then transition to another schedule. And we had some significant problems this year. Not so much, from it transitioning to distance learning, but I'm more concerned if we go from full-scale to hybrid model to distance learning, it could be problematic transitioning over those three different types of schedules. So we're looking into adding another license to our student information system to better manage that. That alone, we anticipate being about a $25,000 cost. Our advanced teleconferencing system, Google Meets, we utilize that over the summer. It's an emergency situation. It worked okay. It did not support the large classrooms that we needed it to. So we're going to be looking, if we have to go to a distance learning route, to bring on a subscription service like Zoom, which is better suited for large group types of teleconferencing. Google Hangouts is more for the small scale ones, not the large group ones. Individual supplies. Generally, we buy a bucket of crayons for the entire class, or one pack or certain packs of clay that get reused by different students. We're going to have to take a look at individualizing supplies so that students do not share the same supplies. And these will also they'll benefit us for when we're in session because it will reduce the touch points for multiple people. But what we learned from distance learning was when we exited, the kids didn't go home with the supplies that were necessary for them to continue some of their learning. So they will have their individual supplies that they will use during school time, and then if we have to exit for a distance learning type of scenario, they will be able to bring those individual supplies home with them. And then finally, we additional technology devices for our kindergarten. They had some extremely old iPads. Generally, they don't use technology that much as they're focusing on more socialization and initial foundational skill sets. So we are going to have to take a look at bringing in some iPads. As I said, we anticipate that we will go to a distance learning model at some point in time. So again, those are some of the things that may happen. Some of them will happen, but again, this was us just kind of throwing things at the wall and see what sticks. We don't know what will stick until next year comes, and we know that there are a lot of things that are not on this list that will come. And again, I think that having this fund allows us the flexibility to address some of these issues quickly. Right now, as you all know, if we have to go back to the Board of Finance for a supplemental appropriation, which could be numerous supplemental appropriations next year as things come to light, it can be a timely process in that we may need to wait 3 or 4 weeks for a Board of Finance meeting, and if it's a request that exceeds, I think it's $20,000, $25,000, yeah, off the head, then we have to go to a town meeting, which could be another couple of weeks. So that kind
We
of
just voted
handcuffs
this
us to
down
being able to respond
6 months ago in February,
responsibly and safely. So again,
February 10th.
just want to be able to make sure that we're doing the best for all the students.
We don't need
And
another
as we go
cookie jar.
forward, and, kind of post-COVID-19, I know a lot of school districts that utilize this. They utilize these funds really for specific items. It's not meant to be a slush fund to buy fluff and other type of stuff that you really don't need, but really to help support some of the things, such as special education. We know that special education tuition and costs are volatile. They're hard to predict every year. 1 or 2 students moving into the school district can bust a budget, pretty quickly. We anticipate that we would be able to meet any volatility that we have. And then as far as budgeting, future budgeting, if we had access to those funds, that we could offset some of our budget requests by tapping into some of those funds. Same would be true of using this in the future for some of the capital improvement maintenance. As you're well aware, very supportive of the fact that we are trying to make sure that all of our facilities are well maintained and kept up to date. I think we're doing a great job with the CIP and the bond. Utilization of this fund would also allow us to maybe work on some of those things so that we're not coming to the Board of Finance with large CIP requests on an annual basis. And other things that it could help out with, again, the volatile issue is the health insurance. That we're seeing upward costs every single year. The past couple of years, our claims have been unfortunately bad, which has jacked up our premiums each one of the years. We would look possibly to utilize this fund to offset any of those increases, and hence it would reduce any kind of budget increase that we would need to make from the Board of Finance. So I hope that this tonight is, obviously the beginning of a discussion that we can engage in to see about possibilities of getting this fund in place to help out the school system next year and possibly in the future. So at this point in time, if there are any questions, we'll take them.
I don't have, this is Mike Parker. I don't have any questions, but you did bring up this same matter in February of this year, and the Board of Finance said no, we didn't want to go in this direction. We have the method that we've used of using our general fund as the cookie jar has worked well for as long as I've been on the Board of Finance. I can't speak to before then, but it's worked well. The citizens of Somers expect the Board of Finance to be their watchdog, and we think that that's our function. And if you have extra funds at the end of your budget cycle, put them back in the reserve fund or in the general fund. And if you have emergencies going forward, or if you have special needs going forward, you've got the Board of Finance here on your side to deal with those issues when they come up. And nobody has ever said that we couldn't act fast enough to accomplish any particular mission that's been thrown at us. So I think I think I want to be candid with you, Brian, and tell you what our perception is, or at least my perception of this is. And let's not, and my advice to you is let's not waste a lot of time on it. Let's deal with the issues that we need to deal with. If you have funding problems, we're here to help you. We're here to be supportive, and we've always been. And let's just deal with it that way. I know this is a matter for discussion, not for vote, but you have the benefit or pain, however you want to look at it, of my perception on the matter.
Mike, and I agree with you that the Board of Finance, you know, in normal times, has been very responsive to any things that have come up. My only fear is that we're far from normal going forward, and some of the things that I may have to jump on immediately to ensure safety of students and staff, that I may not have the luxury of the time. And I understand that you can go quicker with a Board of Finance meeting, but if it's a substantial cost over $20,000, we still have to wait for a town meeting. And that's where I'm fearful that the process can take anywhere from 1 day to 6 weeks, potentially. And 6 weeks or a couple weeks when I need to deal with an emergency situation or a situation that, you know, ensures the safety of staff and students is too long. Again, I agree. I respect the process during normal times. But again, I'm trying to be proactive in anticipating what could happen, what will happen, and what may happen that we just don't know about.
Well, I appreciate your concern, and you have a lot of weight on your shoulders. I do understand that. But the Board of Finance is able to act as quick as you need us to act. If we need to have a special meeting or if we need to deal with things on an emergency basis, we have that capacity. I think rather than think of all the things that can go wrong, which is your job, I suppose, to think of all those things, the focus should be on trying to normalize events, trying to make things as normal as possible rather than try to make them extreme. But that's just my perception. But I think we're here to help you if you have problems. And in that regard, I think the other thing that you get from trying to follow the way we've run for so many years is that I think the great bulk of the people in this town believe that the Board of Finance is their watchdog on the fisc of the town. And I think the thing works very well. And there's just no need to tip things over even a little bit or for this reason. Normalcy is helpful, and making sure that the people in town, or keeping them understanding that the Board of Finance is on their side, is an important thing from my perception. Thanks very much, Brian.
Well, Bill Meyer, just want to say a couple things. Number one, Brian, I just want to thank you and your leadership team. I mean, as the father of a middle school student and an elementary school student, I mean, I kind of saw firsthand how quickly things developed and how quickly you and your team brought up distance learning and successfully implemented it, in my opinion. And not every district had that experience. So I certainly thank you, and please pass the thanks along to your team.
Thank you. I will.
I certainly also appreciate the discussion of the cost savings as well as the extra expenses. And I look forward to seeing us pursuing all avenues for reimbursement. I mean, I think with the nutrition program, through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, through FEMA emergency funds, and others, I think we have the chance of potentially recouping quite a substantial amount of money. But I think it's also time for the Board of Ed and the leadership team to be creative, and to be imaginative and kind of reimagine and redesign what it may look like. And I'm hoping that the unions, play ball with it. I mean, I know you work in largely a union environment, and people that may traditionally do one job may need to do another job. I mean, as an example, I think of paraprofessionals, where we need to go back to them and say, listen, your job was originally one thing, and now it's something else. And I think after we exhaust a lot of those strategies, after that's exhausted, maybe then we can go back to the taxpayers and say, we need some more money to further expand. But I would definitely like to see a lot of this exhausted first. As far as the fund, I would be interested interested in, maybe having the town attorney come in at some point in the future and discuss it, especially around this FEMA reimbursement. I mean, we may, when we get this reimbursement, have some opportunities to create some new funds, whether it's a 2% fund or something else. I know other towns do some things that are very similar, but are controlled a little bit differently. I'm not opposed to the discussion. I think Mike brings up a lot of good points. But I appreciate you bringing this forward, having this discussion.
This is Kathy Devlin. I'm reading through the Connecticut General Statute, and I think I would like to have a meeting with an attorney because if I read this correctly, it appears that it could go on each fiscal year thereafter. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I feel that we should have more discussion about this and wait it out. We don't know. We're dealing with what ifs right now. We don't have anything concrete yet, but you know that we will all have an open ear and try to be supportive, but I'd like to really have some more explanation on the statute too.
Let's move on.
Is there anything else for people to bring up? Okay, then, if that's the case, we're waiting now for the selectmen's update.
Thank you, Kathy. Bud Moore here. We're now in phase 2 of the governor's executive orders, with approximately 90% of all businesses currently open and operating under some restricted conditions. We've opened Town Hall today with appropriate safety measures that are being implemented: masks, social distancing, shields, sanitary measures, etc. The Tax and Assessor's Office will open on July the 6th, and we continue to urge everyone to pay their taxes online or at the drop box in front of Town Hall. The library will be open on July 13th to permit the installation of additional safety measures. We will open a senior center at a later date, given the propensity of the elderly and their compromised immune systems. Parks and summer camps will open along with a cultural series, which starts this Thursday with the Boogie Boys. A quick update in terms of how Summers has done with the COVID-19. We have 297 total positive cases, 37 active cases in Summers, and only one death, unfortunately, for an elderly gentleman. The balance of 260 total positive cases are in the prisons, and currently they have experienced 7 deaths. We've successfully mitigated and controlled the spread of the virus, thanks in large measure to the proactive efforts of our fire, police, emergency management director, and communications outreaches. So far, so good. The common sense measures are still the key.
Would you go over again with me the thing about the COVID, because Journal Inquirer makes it look like that high number is more of the residents, but would
Yeah,
you
I've
not
had-
say the majority of it would be from the prisons?
Yeah, of the 297 cases as of this past week,
There are only
260 cases were in the prisons. So
Thank
we've had
you.
36 active and pending cases here in Summers. And only one death, and that was a transfer. So yes, the numbers are skewed. If people look at that, they think, oh my gosh, we have an outbreak here in Summers,
Right.
but it's only because the prisons.
But you
It's
don't.
out of
It's all the
Summers.
prison population.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next, Michael, do you have an update for us tonight?
Yeah, we do. We have a couple of things, and Brian's going to give you a budget update. Prior to that, I just want to say that we're now actively under audit. The auditors are doing preliminary audit work this week. So we begin that process of assembling all their selections, sample sizes, information that they want. So that's it for basically the accounting side of it. For the budget update, Brian will walk you through what we see as a projected return to fund balance. We're, at this point, with like 10 days to go or less than 10 days to go, we're projecting But after June 30th, it will be final unaudited numbers. So we're pretty close. We'll see what bleeds in over the transition period in early July, and then we'll get some final numbers there. And then, of course, you understand that none of this is audited numbers until December anyway, usually when they finish the audit. So, but that said, our preliminary numbers, Brian, we'll give you that now.
All right. So I apologize to the two bills. I didn't email you the sheets that Kathy and Parker have in front of them, but I'll send them out to you after the meeting so that you have them for your records. So the top section goes over our revenues. Our tax number is what our tax number is going to be for the year. Now that the new fiscal year bills are out, collections are being deferred into next year, so that number will not grow. So we did come in $126,308 over budget. That's largely due to supplemental bills that go out in January, new cars that are added on, and so forth, that it's impossible to know to budget for something that you don't know how many people are going to buy cars in the course of the year and add them on. State aid, we're projecting to come in over budget. That is additional ECS funding that was sent to us after we had nailed down our budget. The big asterisk, I guess you could throw next to that, is we're waiting on our final PQAT payment. It's due in next Tuesday. It's going to decide whether or not we make that number. That's the big plus or minus swing. We haven't heard that we're not going to get it, but we haven't heard that we haven't heard that we are going to get it.
Is that
either,
being
so.
paid in arrears? I mean, is it trail
I
a
thought
year
they-
or so, or?
I'm not sure if it's.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they determine it either.
Well, but I'm worried about with COVID and them not opening, that they don't have the money to be able to spread it around.
That was my concern as well. I would have hoped that at least by now, with 8 days left in the fiscal year, that
Yeah.
if they weren't going to be able to make those numbers, that at least like
they'd be
CCA
trying to
or
soften.
someone
They'd
would
be
have,
trying to soften
would
us
have reached out to
Right.
us. So
They'd be trying to soften us up with some rumors, and CCM would be talking. And so, I have a feeling that it's going to happen.
I'm 90% confident that we're going to get it.
Well, let me know when.
Yeah, next Tuesday is usually their day, so
Okay.
we'll see. Bank interest, we're just barely going to squeak over. We would have pounded that number into the sand with no problem had the banks stopped paying so much interest when COVID broke out. So we're going to meet our number, but we would have been in the 250 range easily had we been able to keep earning the interest that we were earning in December and January. Transfers are transfers. Miscellaneous is in over budget. The big part of that one is other revenue, just random revenue that comes in that you just don't anticipate and have no idea that it's going to come in during the year. And then with our use of fund balance that was authorized, we have our revenues at $491,560 over budget for the year. I grouped the expenses into just major categories. General government is everything within town hall, your employee benefits, your information technology, and so forth. It is over budget $95,000. The three main factors that are driving that number up. The first one is health insurance. When we reorganized the social services and senior center, we had 2 new employees that came on that we had not worked into our budget number in February. They came on in December, so we 10 months later, and we were not anticipating them coming on. Legal fees are about $9,000 to $10,000 over budget for the year as well. And then, if you haven't heard yet, David Mikulski from Public Works is retiring at the end of the year. So his sick and vacation payout is a little just shy of 36,000. The budget in that line item was 10,000, so it's a almost $26,000 overspend for his retirement as well. Public safety is your fire department and your police department and civil prep. They're basically netting each other out. All the overages in fire with COVID are being netted out by savings in the police department. There were a numerous list of savings within the police department. They had a part-time police officer position that they did not fill all year long that was in the budget. When we did the budget, the state at the time had us at 110% fringe benefit ratio we were paying. When the new governor came in, he changed it to 87.5%. So there was quite the savings there, but we had already budgeted at the 110. So one is really offsetting the other at this point, which is kind of helping us. Public Works is slightly over budget, mainly due to the transfer station. Ever since the COVID crisis has hit, transfer station usage has gone up. People are clearing out their houses and dumping their trash to get it out quicker, it seems like.
What about the fire? We
Yeah,
lost a major
well,
building.
that's going to be
Municipal
paid for.
building.
That's being paid for by insurance, thankfully. That was a time-honored treasure down there that is now no longer. But they're going to make do with the new one.
Now, Brian, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I mean, how far over budget is Public Works?
As a group, about 17,000.
Even with the mild winter, I mean, I would expect significant savings from Public Works due to the mild winter.
Yeah, the mild winter is the only thing keeping them from not being in the $60,000 range. They did not have a lot of part-time salaries that got used. They didn't have a lot of overtime that didn't get used. However, with the increased cost of hauling off waste, with more waste coming to, and let's see, what's my other one here? Oh, and road maintenance. Each one, the transfer station and road maintenance both are about $25,000 each over budget.
Why did
So-
road maintenance go over?
That I'd have to look into and see exactly why. And some of those,
Or get details on that, yeah.
yeah, some of those expenses I'll work with Todd on it. Some of those expenses might be able to be shed into the road maintenance fund instead of being in the general fund. So we might be able to move some expenses out. But I have to work with Todd on that and find out exactly what's in road maintenance and what maybe could go towards the TAR fund.
Yeah, it could be a timing difference, Bill. At one point, we didn't think we weren't getting TAR money, which is bond money, and therefore he needed to do the work, so he probably used his maintenance account in his operating budget, and then subsequently, timing-wise, the TAR money did come in, so it could be just a transfer of funds into the right account.
We can most likely shed some expenses there. I'll work with Todd. He's on vacation this week, but I'll work with him in the coming weeks and nail it down. Health services is just the sanitarian and our health director, Luigi. I can't say his last name. They don't have a huge budget, and then what they do have is mostly salary, and so it usually tends to get spent. The library, 20,000 I think is kind of conservative. I honestly think the library will return more than 20,000. Depends on how the last couple of weeks of invoices come in for them. They weren't using as many or purchasing as many hardcover services for the library, though they did see an uptick in their automated services by offering online programming and so forth for people. So we're going to have to play that one by ear, see how they work out. Rec and Leisure is looking to return right at 25,000 for the year. Again, this is due to the restructure down there, combining services, getting fresh eyes on their budgets and seeing where they could have cost savings between the senior center and recreation. So there's a lot of there's savings there. Debt service is debt service. Education, at the time I had this number at 200,000. I've penciled in 250 next to it now with after hearing Brian's presentation. Your miscellaneous is really the only line item there is a contingency fund, and then you have your transfers out. So with everything, with the 50,000 increase from Brian, expenditures are under $207,086. So the two together puts an anticipated return to fund balance of $698,646, right at $700,000 for the year. So long-term, overall global look, what does it mean? Which is your page 3. Our beginning unassigned fund balance that was audited for June 30, 2019, which is what we started July 1, 2019 with, $7,060,613. We have our anticipated expenses and revenues, which now I have to update thanks to the superintendent, but this sheet would have your return to fund balance at $648,646, ending fund balance of $7,709,259. We do have the $1,185,836 that is restricted for the fiscal 21 budget, leaving you with a $6,523,423 unrestricted fund balance. Based on the fiscal 21 adopted expenditure budget, your percentage of reserves would then be 18.66%. That 50,000 probably gets you 2 or maybe 3 percentage points, or tenths of a percentage point. So not a ton, but you'll be pushing the 19%.
18.81.
That was pretty close. So you'd be just shy of 19% for your percentage of reserves.
So it's a little better.
So it is better than we were originally thinking. I know when we adopted or were working through the budget and adopting it, we were down to roughly about 15% with the reserves that were used this year for next year's budget. So with 70% of that being returned, it boosts your fund balance percentage back up.
Thank you for that, Brian. I mean, I certainly am appreciative to you, Mike, and the Board of Selectmen for returning that money. And I think it's going to be important as we go forward. I have not yet seen any transfer requests from the department to the Board of Finance. I'm kind of still new to the role. And I do understand the summers usually does them at the end of the year after the fiscal year closes. But, please, I would like to see the transfers and then the backup from the department to justify them with enough time before the meeting when we're going to approve them, because I think it's really important this time, and the message needs to be loud and clear, that we're scrutinizing every expenditure. And I know that this has already been said by the selectmen in their meeting, but we have the same responsibility as the Board of Finance to the taxpayers and the voters to make sure that we're keeping an eye on the departments to go over their budgets and their explanations.
Thank you. Are we going to go into transfers or any transfers or appropriations
Don't
tonight?
have any, no.
Okay. Any other business to come before the group tonight? Bud, you have anything?
No.
Okay. Michael?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so then what we'll do next is to do some approval of minutes. So the first, the minutes for March 23rd at 7 p.m. Have you seen those minutes? Or do you want to wait on these? You guys on the...
I emailed them out to them today.
Okay, so if you have the minutes, can we get a vote on, why don't we take them all at one time?
Do each one individually.
I would do each one
Okay,
individually
let's do
only
March.
because Bill Meyer was not at the May 12th meeting, so he can't vote on that one.
All right, so let's try for the There was a teleconference on March 23rd. Do I have any motion for an
So moved.
approval?
Approved.
Okay, we have Michael,
Second.
and there's a second, okay. How about April 21st, 2010? It was after the public hearing.
We vote on that one, Kathy?
Yeah, let's vote on the first one.
Which one? Oh, yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so it's unanimous. All right, so then we do, second one here is April 21st, and I'm trying to see who was not here.
Everybody. was-
Everybody.
Everyone was there,
Yep.
and so it was a budget discussion. Do I have a,
So moved. Approved.
okay, Michael, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Third
Pass.
one, we only have 3 people, so I don't know that we can vote on it.
You can defer.
Yeah, that one we'll have to defer to a later meeting.
So that would be the May 12th meeting?
Yeah, because we only have 3 possible votes, which isn't a quorum vote.
Okay. Well, let's see, Jim, Kathy, Joe, Michael, and Bill. You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, because Bill Meyer wasn't at the meeting, so we only have
So
3
now you're
people.
down to
So-
3 members that
so
can.
that's-
So
Three
we'll
to-
have to
3 to
defer
2.
that.
How is it ever going to get any better?
No, you just don't. If Jim or Joe were here, then we could vote on it.
Then we'd have 4.
Yeah, then you'd have at least 4 people. To
Right
vote
now,
on
we
it.
got 3, me, Kathy, and Bill Salka,
I
right?
think you need 4 to vote because it doesn't come. I don't.
The majority, though, of this quorum. so
It is. I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys. If you want to make a motion on it, and then Ann says we have to do it again, we'll do it at a later
Let's give
meeting.
Ann something to think
Let's
about.
give her something
I
to
move
do.
to approve this May 12th
Michael.
budget.
Second.
It was seconded by Bill. Okay, all in favor? That was a good one. All
Brian
right.
abstained. Brian abstained. Bill Meyer.
Yep.
Okay, now where's my agenda here? Put it in the middle of this whole thing. Okay, so we've approved all the minutes. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
You have one. You have my motion.
Right
to
here.
adjourn.
Second, I'll second that.
Second, all right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Have a wonderful night and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Brian, excellent job.
Excellent,
Where's my
right.
stop
Very
button?
nice.
Yeah, stop.
Look at.
Yeah.
There we go.
We see if we